Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, aka the Football History Dude, and I'm here to help you finish your Christmas shopping list and let everyone else over there stiff-arm their competition while trying to fight off that tryptophan on Turkey Night. Now, what we did was we partnered with Rochester Sports Autographs, the largest JSA authenticated autograph distributor in the United States, where you can get up to 75% off over 30,000 autographed sports collectibles during this holiday season. They have something for everyone. But how is RSA able to offer such great deals on JSA authentication, you ask? Well, they do this by making deals directly with athletes so there are no extra markups, and they choose to then pass that savings on to you, the customer. Now, all orders from Rochester Sports Autographs are top quality and shipped to your door with top authentication and a money-back guarantee. But hurry up because customers are so stark raving mad for RSA that memorabilia sells out daily. All you have to do is head over to shoprsa.com/SHN. Again, that's shoprsa.com/SHN. So don't wait to bring home your favorites and own a piece of sports history for you and the loved ones on your shopping list this holiday season. This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.
The Rose Bowl. The game that inspired the college football bowl season has a long and storied history. The stadium itself is 100 years old, and in celebration of it, Pigskin Dispatch is assembling some of the top historians and authors to share the memories, people, and events that make the granddaddy of them all the special game that it is. Enjoy this Rose Bowl memory from pigskindispatch.com.
Hello, my football friends. This is Darren Hayes of PigskinDispatch.com. Welcome once again to the Pig Pen, your portal to positive football history. And it is Rose Bowl month. We're celebrating the great game out in Pasadena, California, in its 100th anniversary of the stadium. And together with our friend and historian, Timothy P. Brown. Tim, welcome back to the Pig Pen to talk about the Rose Bowl.
Hey, Darren, thank you. Looking forward to talking Rose Bowl again. I can never talk enough about it.
Well, you gave us a great overview of the Rose Bowl to kick us off earlier in the month, and we're appreciating you have a few segments here you're going to talk about this month, and folks, we're going to be filling up this whole month with Rose Bowl history. So it's going to be some great memories that you'll be rekindled, and some maybe you weren't aware of that you'll learn, like I am. So this is a great event. And Tim, you wanted to talk a little bit about a game that was played before it was even considered the Rose Bowl in the early 20th century.
Yeah, so I guess what I was hoping to chat about was a game that never took place.
Okay.
or a series of games that never took place. So, as we talked about in the kind of kickoff segment, Michigan and Stanford played in 1902. Stanford got blown out and they ended the game early. And so, the Tournament of Roses people were left with two problems. One was that they had a blowout game. And so they were concerned that if they didn't come up with a good matchup for future games, that people might not want to come. And they also faced a bunch of debt because while they kind of made money, their cash flow and everything was fine for the 1902 game. They had invested a bunch of money building a stadium, buying the land and then building a stadium called Tournament Park. So, they were kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. We need to schedule a good game because we don't, it costs a lot of money to bring a team out from the East. And just everything to put on a game costs a chunk of change. So they wanted to make sure they had a good matchup. The problem was they invited Michigan to come back out for the 1903 game, and Michigan said, no thanks, not interested. They checked in with Stanford and Cal to see if if they had interest. And the Cal manager, anyways, said, "Yeah, sounds good. We're interested." And so they proceeded, and the tournament folks looked at like Georgetown, Carlisle, and Wisconsin for the 1903 game, and Wisconsin kind of got ahead of things and said, "Hey, we're interested." They sent an agent out to negotiate on their behalf and basically set up a contract to come on out and play the game on New Year's Day 1903. So that was the Badgers' first invitation to the Rose Bowl. Unfortunately, they didn't get to play in a Rose Bowl for another 50 or so years. But so anyways, they go out there and while he's negotiating, they then go up to Berkeley to kind of tie the bow with those folks, and the agent says, "Well, I'm sorry, the manager, Berkeley's manager says, well, it turns out the team's not interested." So, the tournament was in a spot where Cal didn't want to play. They had beaten Stanford, so Stanford wasn't that great a team, and they were looking around. It's like, who are we going to have? Who can we possibly invite? USC was still kind of a smaller college kind of team at the time, playing Occidental and those kinds of folks, and they looked at Utah, but Utah expressed interest, but they weren't that good. They had been beaten by Stanford, and Wisconsin was approved. Their faculty had approved the trip only if they played Cal or Stanford. For them, it wasn't at the time. Utah just didn't have the academic, credentials, I guess, of Cal or Stanford. So, anyways, so the 1903 game basically fell apart. And then, there's the perception has always been, I mean, most people's understanding is after 1902, they didn't even try again until 1916. But the fact is that they continued trying. So they tried in 1903 to schedule a game. And then there were multiple other efforts over the next several years to schedule, another football game. And they tried things like they invited the Wright brothers to come on out, in lieu of football. They had ostrich races, and they had chariot races inside the football, around the cinder track, etc. So, I mean, they tried all kinds of stuff. And then what also really hurt them was with everything going on in 1905 and, the danger of football at the time, Cal and Stanford both dropped football and they switched to rugby. So, the Cal Stanford big game, if you look at their old yearbooks of the period, they all talk about they're playing football, but actually they're playing rugby. So that continued on. And then, Cal restarted football, gridiron football in 1915 or 16, and then Stanford did in like 1918. But by that point, the tournament was really, geared up, wanting to get football back as part of the tournament. And so, they were able to set up the 1916 game between Brown and Washington State, who had won the Pacific Coast or Northwest Conference title, at the time. So, and that kind of restarted it, and one of the funny things too is if you look back at like newspaper articles, really well into the 20s, where they would show the list of all the Rose Bowl games. Most of the time, they didn't list 1902. It was like people didn't really consider that because there had been such a gap there. People didn't consider that to be a Rose Bowl game. And I know that I think it was Yost who used to really hack off that it wasn't considered. It wasn't on people's lists. So he kind of always campaigned to get people to make sure that they would, list Michigan and their big victory on that list. But from 1916 on, they were able to play every year. There were some other fits and starts and changes as we discussed earlier, but it had a hard little start, but it's turned into quite a spectacle.
Now, I believe you said in the inaugural segment of this Rose Bowl celebration, when you're explaining it, this game at that point in time was not called the Rose Bowl; it was called the Tournament of Roses football game, I believe.
Yeah, it was like I should have confirmed it ahead of time. It was like the East-West tournament game or something. It was just it was kind of a weird, it was a very awkward name, but it was East-West something or other. And it really only became known as the Rose Bowl after the stadium was built. And the first game, it wasn't even a bowl, for the first game, but there's a horseshoe when they built it in 1923. But in the lead up to the 1923 game, a local sports writer, from Pasadena, called it the Rose Bowl, and it was a nice, catchy, great little name. Followed on, the Yale Bowl, which had opened in 1916, and so, anyways, that kind of caught on, and it's been what we call it ever since.
Well, very interesting indeed. Tim, you have a great website that you bring out some great football information each and every day. Maybe you could share the name of the website and how people can get some of your stuff.
Sure. So the website is footballarchaeology.com. You can just go to the site, and the vast majority of the content on there is available to anyone. Just use the little magnifying glass button, or to search, by search for content, or just scroll through. There is some premium content. So, but if you want to make sure that you get access to the articles, just subscribe for free, and you'll get an email every night at 7:00 Eastern with what I call today's tidbit. 30-second sort of piece of content. And then, a couple times a month, I also put out, longer form articles. And there's a couple of other things that I do on the site, including posting these podcasts whenever I appear.
All right. Well, we definitely appreciate that. And we appreciate you coming and sharing not only football history, but this Rose Bowl history in honor of the big game coming up here in a real short time on its 100th anniversary of the stadium. So Tim Brown, Football Archaeology, thank you once again for joining us.
Hey, thank you, Darren. I know we've got one more that we're going to talk about in a couple of weeks. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, definitely. Man. Thank you.
Peeking up at the clock, the time's running down. We're going to go into victory formation, take a knee, and let this baby run out. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you back tomorrow for the next podcast. We invite you to check out our website, pigskindispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskindispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. A special thanks to the talents of Mike and Jean Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com. Hey there, sports history fan. This is Arnie Chapman, a.k.a. the Football History Dude, and I hope that you enjoyed this recent episode presented by the Sports History Network and were able to learn some good old-fashioned sports history knowledge nuggets. I started the Sports History Network back in 2020 with the mission to help podcasters find a community of like-minded sports history nerds, as well as helping aspiring podcasters to start their own shows. We have a little bit over 30 shows on the network right now covering all sorts of sports history, but as far as I'm concerned, we're just at the toothpick in the ocean moment, that can't even figure it out because there's so much more coming. We wanted to create the ultimate headquarters for sports yesteryear. starting with Podcast Network and our website, but we're going to continue to move into other mediums as well. And here's the cool part, because we want you to be part of our team. So if you're interested in starting your own podcast, or maybe being a guest on one of our shows, or who knows, maybe even writing an article for us over on the website. Seriously, all you gotta do is reach out to us on the contact page over at sportshistorynetwork.com. You can be as technologically savvy as a Neanderthal tapping on a stone trying to figure out this whole hieroglyphics thing back in the day. Again, it doesn't matter, because even if you don't understand the whole podcast space, we have a production team that can pretty much help you out with doing everything. All you gotta do, head over to sportshistorynetwork.com, head to the contact page, fill it out. That message goes right to me, and I'll reach out to you as soon as I can. But for now, dude, I'm through if you're through.